guys, hope you're having a good day. I wanted to talk to you and do a little lesson on making inferences. It's a skill that we've been talking about this week in reading. When you make inferences, you're kind of like being a detective, and you're wanting to better understand the character. When you better understand the character, then that will help you to comprehend the story better. So when you are making inferences, you need to think to yourself, what do you already know? Take what you already know and then use text evidence, words, situations from the story that you can infer with. The difference between making an inference and then making a prediction is text evidence. Prediction, you're kind of guessing what is going to happen next based on what you know. But when you make an inference, you take what you know as well as text evidence from the story to help you become a better reader and to understand the characters better. When you understand the characters better, you'll be able to comprehend better what's going on in the story. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you a story, Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. It's written by William Steig. And as I read it, I'm going to be stopping periodically through and asking you to make an inference on what is going on with the characters in the story. And remember, when you're making inferences, you're kind of like being a detective and you're guessing, you're using your magnifying glass and trying to determine what is going to happen next based on what you already know and the text evidence from the story. All right, let's begin. Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. Sylvester Duncan lived with his mother and father at Acorn Road in Oatsdale. One of his hobbies was collecting pebbles of unusual shape and color. On a rainy Saturday during vacation, he found a quite extraordinary one. It was a flaming red, shiny, and perfectly round like a marble. As he was studying this remarkable pebble, he began to shiver, probably from excitement, and the rain felt cold on his back. "I wish it would stop raining," he said. To his great surprise, the rain stopped. It didn't stop gradually as rain usually does. It ceased. The drops vanished on the way down. The clouds disappeared. Everything was dry, and the sun was shining as if it had never existed. In all his young life, Sylvester had never had a wish gratified so quickly. It struck him that magic must be at work, and he guessed that the magic must be in the remarkable-looking red pebble, where indeed it was. To make a test, he put the pebble on the ground and said, "I wish it would rain again." Nothing happened. But when he said the same thing, holding the pebble in his hoof, the sky turned black. There was lightning and a clap of thunder, and the rain came shooting down. Now I'm going to stop there. And I want you to infer, take your magnifying glass and infer, how do you think Sylvester is feeling at this moment? He has just discovered this pebble. He normally collects pebbles, but this pebble was special. It was nice and red. It was very interesting looking. He held it and just, sometimes we say, "Oh, I wish it would stop raining." Or, "Oh, I wish it would be warm outside." But what if when you were holding that, it actually did? And when he was holding that pebble, the rain stopped immediately. It ceased. Didn't even gradually stop. Immediately, the rain stopped. That's when he discovered, there must be some magic in this pebble. So he put it down, said the same thing. Nothing happened. So what can we infer that when he held the pebble and said the same thing, something happened? We can infer that the magic was in the pebble. "What a lucky day this is," thought Sylvester. "From now on, I can have anything I want. My mother and father can have anything they want. My relatives, my friends, and anybody at all can have everything anybody wants. Have you ever had something spectacular happen to you? How do you feel? That's exactly how Sylvester is feeling. What a lucky day this is, he said. That's pretty special, and he is so excited. He wished the sunshine back in the sky, and he wished a wart on his left hind footlock would disappear, and it did. And he started home, eager to amaze his mother and father, and with his magic pebble. He could hardly wait to see their faces. Maybe they wouldn't even believe him at first. As he was crossing Strawberry Hill, thinking of some of the many, many things he could wish for, he was startled to see a mean, hungry lion looking right at him from behind some tall grass. He was frightened. If he hadn't been so frightened, he could have made the lion disappear, or he could have wished himself safe at home with his father and mother. We're going to stop there, and we're going to infer, how many of you have ever been scared? Sometimes when you're scared, you forget and do something that doesn't make sense. And he's getting ready to do something that doesn't make any sense because he's so scared. He could have wished the lion would turn into a butterfly or a daisy or a gnat. He could have wished many things, but he panicked and he couldn't think carefully. Because sometimes that happens when we're scared. I wish I were a rock, he said, and he became a rock. The lion came bounding over, sniffed the rock 100 times, walked around and around it, and went away confused, perplexed, puzzled, and bewildered. I saw that little donkey as clear as day. Maybe I'm going crazy, he muttered. He had saw a donkey, and then all of a sudden, he saw a rock. He was puzzled. What happened? And there was Sylvester, a rock on Strawberry Hill, with the magic pebble lying right beside him on the ground, and he was unable to pick it up. Oh, how I wish I were myself again, he thought. But nothing happened. Because why did nothing happen? What do we know? What did we learn earlier in the story? What did you have to do to the rock? You had to be holding the rock in order for the magic to appear. The rock is laying right there beside him. His thoughts began to race like mad. He was scared and worried. Being helpless, he felt hopeless. He imagined all the possibilities, and eventually he realized that his only chance of becoming himself again was for someone to find the red pebble and to wish that the rock next to it would be a donkey. What are the chances of that happening? Someone would surely find the red pebble. It was so bright and shiny. But what on earth would make them wish that a rock were a donkey? The chance was 1 in a billion at best. Sylvester fell asleep. What else could he do? Night came with many stars. How do you think Sylvester is feeling right now? What can you infer he is feeling? He's now a rock. He feels hopeless. He feels helpless. He has a request that is 1 in a billion. He has to have someone come by, spot the rock, and wish it were a donkey. Meanwhile, back at home, Mr. and Mrs. Duncan paced the floor, frantic with worry. Sylvester had never come home later than dinner time. Where could he be? They stayed up all night wondering what had happened, expecting that Sylvester would surely turn up by morning, but he didn't. Of course, Mrs. Duncan cried a lot, and Mr. Duncan did his best to soothe her. Both longed to have their dear son with them. I will never scold Sylvester again as long as I live, said Mrs. Duncan, no matter what he does. At dawn, they went about, inquiring of all the neighbors. How can you imagine they felt? What can you infer they are feeling at this moment? They're worried. They're going around. asking all the people in their community what has happened to their son, if they'd seen their son. They talked to all the children, the puppies, the kittens, the colts, the piglets. No one had seen Sylvester since the day before yesterday. They went to the police. The police could not find their child. They were really worried. All the dogs in Oatsdale went searching for him. They sniffed behind every rock and tree and blade of grass, into every nook and gully of the neighborhood and beyond, but found not a scent of him. They sniffed the rock on Strawberry Hill, but it smelled like a rock. It didn't smell like Sylvester. After a month of searching the same places over and over again and inquiring of the same animals over and over again, Mr. and Mrs. Duncan no longer knew what to do. They concluded that something dreadful must have happened and that they would probably never see their son again, though all the time he was less than a mile away. They tried their best to be happy, to go about their usual ways, but their usual ways included Sylvester, and they were always reminded of him. They were miserable. Life had no meaning for them anymore. I can imagine that your parents or grandparents would be so sad if something happened to you and a month had gone by and they had not found you. They would be so sad. Night followed day, and day followed night over and over again. Sylvester on the hill woke up less and less often. When he was awake, he was only hopeless and unhappy. He felt he would be a rock forever, and he tried to get used to it. He went into an endless sleep. The days grew colder. Fall came with the leaves changing color. Then the leaves fell, and the grass bent to the ground. Then it was winter. The winds blew this way and that. It snowed. Mostly the animals stayed indoors, living on the food they had stored up. One day, a wolf sat on the rock that was Sylvester and howled because he was hungry. So it's going through all the seasons. No one has found the rock, and no one has wished that it were a donkey. Then the snows melted, the earth warmed up in the spring sun, and things budded. Leaves were on the trees again, flowers showed their young faces, and there's Sylvester and the red pebble. One day in May, Mr. Duncan insisted that his wife go with him on a picnic. "Let's cheer up," he said. "Let us try to live again and be happy, even though Sylvester, our angel, is no longer with us." They went to Strawberry Hill. Mrs. Duncan sat down on the rock. The warmth of his own mother sitting on him woke Sylvester up from his deep winter sleep. How he wanted to shout, "Mother! Father! It's me, Sylvester! I'm right here!" But he couldn't talk. He had no voice. He was stone dumb. Mr. Duncan walked aimlessly about while Mrs. Duncan set out the picnic food on the rock: alfalfa sandwiches, pickled oats, sassafras salad, Timothy compote. Suddenly Mr. Duncan saw the red pebble. "What a fantastic pebble!" he exclaimed. Sylvester would have loved it for his collection. He put the pebble on the rock. They sat down to eat. Sylvester was now as wide awake as a donkey that was a rock could possibly be. Mrs. Duncan felt some mysterious excitement. "You know, Father," she suddenly said, "I have the strangest feeling that our dear Sylvester is still alive and not far away." I am, Sylvester wanted to shout, but he couldn't. If only he had realized that the pebble resting on his back was the magic pebble. Lesson 4. What do you think Sylvester is feeling? How do you think he is feeling? He doesn't know that the pebble is on top of the rock, because he is a rock. He doesn't know that. But if he knew it, how excited would he be? He's already so excited because he knows his parents are right there. He can hear them. "Oh, how I wish he were here with us on this lovely May day," said Mrs. Duncan. Mr. Duncan looked sadly at the ground. "Don't you wish it too, Father?" she said. He looked at her as if to say, "How can you ask such a question?" Mr. and Mrs. Duncan looked at each other with great sorrow. I wish I were myself again. I wish I were my real self again, thought Sylvester. And in less than an instant, he was. You can imagine the scene that followed. The embraces, the kisses, the questions, the answers, the loving looks, and the fond exclamations. What can you infer about what is happening with these characters? They are so happy. You can infer that based on the picture text, based on the text down below. The author doesn't need to tell you the characters were happy. You can infer that. When they had eventually calmed down a bit and had gotten home, Mr. Duncan put the magic pebble in an iron safe. Someday they might want to use it, but really for now, what more could they have wished for? They all had all that they wanted. So as a reader, you need to use making inferences, be a detective when you are reading a story. Try to put yourself in the character's shoes. Imagine what that character is feeling. Imagine what they're going through. It will help you to become a better reader, to be able to comprehend the story much more clearly. Remember, take what you already know, find text evidence. It could be pictures or it can be words, and you can infer. Remember, you can become a better reader by practicing this skill. Hope that helps. If you have any questions, let me know. See you soon.